Hello, everyone. Hiya. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So, yeah. Hi, Nick. So, yeah, this is it. This is everything. So, an apparent Izzy, an apparent body speaking on Zoom is all there is. And what is an apparent Zoom call? What is just naturally whole and complete. So what is unconditional love, so to speak. It's just naturally perfect, exactly as it is. So, of course, there is nothing to say. There is no message, and there is no possibility of being able to even describe or suggest or point to or highlight what is. There's just no possibility of getting outside, so to speak, to talk about this. And so all that appears to happen is everything. And it's totally indescribable. And it's totally perfect. And so, of course, there is no experience of this. There is no experience of sitting on Zoom, listening to Izzy, or breathing, talking, typing. There is no awareness of this either. No knowing, no understanding. There just is nothing. Nothing, which is everything. Nothing being everything. Which is this? An apparent Zoom meeting. So, of course, that is the suggestion, one could say. What seems to happen in these meetings is that that's suggested. But there then seems to be an apparent body or bodies that then say, I feel like me. And that this is my life and that this is happening to me. There is no me. There never was. There never will be. Yeah, it's just not even a thing. So anyone is, as always, welcome to unmute themselves and have a chat. Yeah, there's no right or wrong. Just see what happens. Okay, that one in the chat. Izzy, if I ask you who you are, what would be your answer? Thanks. I mean, of course, totally normal. Probably disappointingly normal. If someone asks me who I am, what's my name, I'll just say I'm Izzy. I mean, I perhaps sort of see where the question's coming from, like with this sort of self-inquiry kind of, who am I? Who are you? This sort of thing. But yeah, there is no one. But then, of course, there's no one going around claiming to be no one, or saying, you know, someone asks, who are you? And well, I'm no one. I mean, there is no one. So the one that would sort of want to play this game or maybe try to impress in this way is dead. So yeah, there's just an apparent body saying, I'm Izzy. My name's Izzy. I'm this age. I live here. I like this. Yeah, totally normal. But of course, there just is already no one doing that. Okay, another one in the chat. You say everything is normal and end your speaking with apparently, haha. Well, of course, yeah. But what is totally normal, totally natural. Just perfectly natural in this way. So there's nothing mysterious or special or spiritual about this. There's just simply this. But of course, it's not an actual normality. Nothing is actual. But perhaps in terms of sort of the apparent person seems to always be seeking the special or the mystical or magical. So what is just totally normal. Yeah, there's nothing special about it or magical. Okay, another one in the chat. Hi, Izzy. How can we see unconditional love when someone appears as a narcissist or someone bullying? Well, of course, no one sees unconditional love anyway. So the apparent person would seem to turn so-called negative things like narcissism or bullying or abuse or trauma, and then think, well, this must be love because Izzy says this is love. So how can I see that this is love? Or how can I love this and accept this and embrace this? That would be sort of the other one. But of course, there always seems to be a personal motivation behind this, one could say. So there's something painful happening in so-called life, and if only I could see this as love, then it would make it better, or it would make it better for me, ultimately. So it always seems to come back to that, of course. Better for me, happier for me, peaceful for me. And so, of course, if there's apparent narcissism or apparent bullying, the body may reject that and may just go somewhere else or be with someone else or whatever. So this isn't, I mean, it's not saying anything. So there's no suggestion to put up with bad things or to not put up with bad things. There's already no one who could decide this. But of course, what is unconditional love, and it appears as everything, including apparent narcissism, apparent pain, trauma, but also joy, happiness.
Hi, Izzy.
Hiya.
My name's Karen, and I just had a question. A little while ago, you said something about the apparent you being dead, and a lot of you guys don't say that. So, that there's no one to die or whatever. So, a dying process, if not, if there was that appeared to happen, I guess would be the question. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Karen, I missed the so I heard you say that I said I'm dead, but then a lot of people say that there's no one to die, and then it cut out.
Oh, okay. So I was just wondering about if you went through something of a death process, or like an appearance of the me disappearing over time with discomfort. I mean, that's this experience. That's what this is going through here. So I just wondered if that was something you could talk about. But when you use the word dead, that part of you was dead, I was like, oh, a lot of these, like the ones I've listened to in the past, have not used that word or wouldn't use that word. So it sparks curiosity. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, of course. So I mean, of course, it is, of course, a total paradox, one could say. I mean, we say that the one, or the apparent person died, but of course, one could say this is already saying too much, because there is no person who died.
Mhm.
So yeah, there is no death, of course. So when I say I died, of course, it's only an apparent death. And in that death, it's obvious that there was no death.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's perfect answer. Thank you. Well, not, yes.
But of course, I mean, yeah, I did. There seemed to be this apparent death process, one could say, where
Mhm.
there was a sort of awakening, or an apparent awakening, that seemed to shake things up, you could say, for want of a better word. And then, I mean, like you say, then there was sort of quite a bit of pain then, with kind of this apparent, what seemed like a death process. But then with the actual apparent death, of course, that doesn't happen. I mean, to say it's sudden is just impossible, because it just doesn't happen. But
Mhm.
in the sense of the apparent person seems to feel as if it's going through this process. And then, of course, there just seems to be this sudden explosion into boundlessness, which in that sense, to use these words, is final, of course. So this sort of apparently painful falling away of the parent me or whatever just totally explodes. And then it's just obvious that there just never was a me that was slowly falling away, or that suddenly fell away. There just was no me.
Right. And I imagine a lot of people hearing that want that, that's the worm on the hook, so to speak. Want, oh, that sounds great. Why wouldn't I want that? But I also have been listening long enough to various givers of this message to know that that's just another hook.
Oh, of course, totally.
Yeah.
And actually the funny thing is, of course, the person, I mean, there is no this to want or not want, but the person doesn't want this. It seems to create another thing out of this, one could say, another reward, another goal, another liberation. And it sounds very positive, but of course no apparent me will want its own death. Of course
Right.
not.
Right.
So it seems to be this constant loop of sort of just going round and round and round, apparently. But when I realized, or when it was realized, so to speak, that this was actually about my death, then it seemed quite confronting.
I see. Can you talk a little more about that? Where my mind goes is, if this is all about my death, it's the me, telling a whole story or making up a lot of suffering over its own death. The me self dying.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seemed that way for me too. Like,
Mhm.
it still seemed very like a conceptual idea, I could say. Like, I know, I get it that there's all these patterns, these conditionings, and that's the me or whatever. But there then still seemed to be this distance, one could say, almost as if the apparent person seems to create these two things almost. So there's me, and then there's the me.
Right. Right. Okay.
Or
That's well
whatever.
said.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
it seemed very subtle. I wasn't even aware of this, of course. And then energetically, it was then very obvious that this was actually about me dying, not the me or a me or an ego or the me that Andreas spoke of or whatever. It was my death. That was it. I was going to die.
I see. Okay. Actually, that's really helpful. That's a nice way to look at it. I know it sounds crazy, but
I'm not
I've been listening to this message for about a year and a half now, and I can feel the subtleties of how it's delivered, and I appreciated that. So it isn't about the me dying. It's actually me is dying. That's
Oh,
what
well,
you're
of
saying.
course, neither exist.
Mm-hmm.
Or I mean, they're the same apparent concept we speak of. So there's
Yeah.
no me and the me. I guess what I'm
Right.
saying is, I mean, there's just neither of these exist. But
Yeah.
I guess what was realized was that that the me that was being spoken about was me in that sense. I mean, very arrogantly, sort of,
Yeah. Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
don't have a me. It's not going to happen, that it's, yeah, the me needs to go, but I'll stay.
I totally hear that and appreciate that. Thank you. Your joy is wonderful. It's kind of infectious.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Okay, right, just before I take the next one, I just need to pause. I can hear my dog whining outside my door, so bear with me. Okay, sorry about it's close to her dinner time. Right. Okay. Okay, I've done that one. So in the chat. Okay, so for example, a parent Andreas reported that his death was a gradual thing. For others, it's more of a sudden thing, all story-wise. Saying that one slowly falls away / dies before it even happened. Isn't that another trick of the me to keep itself alive as it's even real already? Or is this a slow death, something that's only to be reported after the non-happening? Saying that one slowly falls away or dies before it even happened, isn't that another trick of the me? I mean, of course, this question is, well, like all questions, of course, is totally impossible to answer. There is no answer, because, I mean, it's just totally impossible to even begin to comment on whether the me falls away slowly or whether it falls away suddenly, because it just doesn't happen. So if there's an apparent body saying that it was slow or whatever, and there's an apparent body saying it was sudden, so to speak, or whatever, then of course that's just what appears to be happening. But of course there just is no me that falls away, either gradually or suddenly. Yeah, so of course it's just a total non-starter. I sort of can't say, oh well, it's different for everyone or whatever, because yeah, it's just, as you say, a total non-happening, of course. Yeah, a total non-starter, of course. Yeah. I mean, all apparent questions are, of course. Yeah. There are no questions. Thanks for killing me. My pleasure. And yeah, there's no trick of the me to keep itself alive. There is no me. There's just no possibility of anything perpetuating the me. Won't be making it to Brighton if you go on like this. Yeah, you might be dead before you get there. Who knows? Okay, another one in the chat. I couldn't understand how things are working without the me, but later I can see that this flow of life which makes everything function, everything is a response to what arises. For example, what happens right now, you heard the dog and let him in, everything else is like this, call and response. One could say so, of course, yeah. Yeah. There's just, of course, no one doing that. No one in the centre, no one outside the centre, no one centreless, whatever. Total call and response. I mean, I don't know, yeah, if you want to call it like that. There's life just appearing to happen on its own. The dog barking for its dinner, Izzy responding, letting it out, feeding the dinner later. Yeah, brushing the teeth, going to bed, waking up, having a few drinks, whatever. Totally normal.
Izzy, it's Karen again.
Hi, Karen.
I wanted to say something going back to a person who asked a question before about seeing a narcissist or a loving person, a bullying person as loving, un, unconditional love. And I just wanted to add, I'm going to be 70 this year. I've been on a spiritual path, unfortunately, for for 50 years after a near death experience. So, I've gone through a lot of spiritual concepts, let's say. And one of the ones was to try and forgive everyone and see everybody as only love and all of that stuff. And it kept me in a relationship way too long with a person who was, they like to throw around in the world, they like to throw around the word toxic. But, these these spiritual concepts uh, can in a way can bring on so much more pain because you know i I can testify that I tried at least 13 years longer than I should have to see only love in this person. And now when I come across these things like on Facebook or in on where people are just talking about this, everybody's love's the only love. Well, sometimes you have to walk away. Walk away, it might be loving yourself. And that was, I know we're talking about something different here, but I see how the confusion happens because it happened for me. For me, it happened. And it was only when I said, I don't really care what happens. I just have to not be suffering. And it seems a little similar to listening to this message about the no me that boy, it loves suffering. The me in my it seems to love suffering. And so sometimes it's like just getting up and walking away, of that sense of I have to suffer for this. Maybe not. Maybe it's just going for a walk. Maybe it's just, turning on the television and, watching a comedy or something. I don't know.
Oh,
Just
totally, exactly, yeah.
yeah, just offering that from an older lady of lots of experience of making many mistakes. All right. Thanks, Izzy.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, of course. I mean, the apparent person would hear these words or this type of communication, sort of what is total unconditional love, is total purity, perfection, but it can only ever seem to hear itself in that. So it then seems to think a way to get there, perhaps, like you said, is to love everyone, or to love myself, or to see everyone as pure or as love or light. I mean, yeah, a constant effort, of course. Someone's being nasty. Oh, well, it's okay. They're love. I mean, sorry, but yeah, of course, there is no one already. So, and of course, this apparent response, I mean, is just what appears to be happening, but there always seems to be this personal agenda with it. That if I see them as love, then I will be at peace around them, or I can relax, or I can clear my karma, or whatever. Yeah, I mean, of course, there is just unconditional love, purity, and perfection, but it's not experienced or known by anyone, and it's not there's no way into that, and there's no way out of it, because it's not even a thing. It's just what is apparently happening is whole and complete. Okay, another one in the chat. How could you be certain that you may not be the one who is living a non-dual fantasy dream? Maybe. I mean, there is no one. But there is no certainty, of course. I mean, not in terms of this question. I'm not saying there just is no certainty. So this one that will live in the realm, let's say, or the little world of certainty is the so-called person. So am I there yet? Is there a me? Is there not a me? Have I fallen away? Have I got what Izzy's got? Whatever, all these, all these questions, constant questions. And so, yeah, there is no one who is certain or uncertain, and there is no non-dual fantasy dream, nor is there a so-called unconditional love reality. There's just this, just what appears to be happening, an apparent question coming up on the screen, an apparent Izzy responding. And there's no certainty in that, and there's no non-duality in that. It's just what appears to be happening. Hi, Izzy, can you talk about the end of experiencing? Well, I mean, this apparent liberation is the so-called end of apparent experience, death, in other words, only to be revealed that there just never was an experience, ever. And there never was an experiencer, an experience, or an experiencing. There's always just been what appears to happen, which is death. Or life, or whatever. Life is death. And so, of course, this, what appears to happen is not experienced. So it can't be spoken about. Because there's no one experiencing it who could speak about it. The apparent person would seem to say, well, it's experienced. I'm sitting on Zoom, I'm breathing, I am talking, typing, and there will be an end to this. When I get what Izzy's got, then it will end. But of course, there are no beginnings and endings. So the apparent suggestion is that this, so to speak, is already the end of experience, or there never is an experience that could end. And this is already death. Okay, a few more in the chat. Do I think that things, situations, and people get accepted or rejected energetically without anyone? I probably wouldn't describe it in the words energetically, and to make it sound sort of quite, I don't know, but of course, yeah, the apparent body seems to I wouldn't necessarily call it accept or reject in this sense, because there's obviously not a conscious pushing away or a conscious drawing in, because the one who would want to do this is dead. But one could say that the body seems to like and dislike certain things, one could say. Certain foods, certain people, certain situations, certain hobbies. But of course, not in this sort of existential, energetically rejecting or accepting way, no. I mean, just totally normal. Izzy likes this, she doesn't like this. She listens to this music, she doesn't like that music, whatever. Okay, when I died and it was finally to the me when you died and it was finally to the me seems like a before and after. The me is latched onto the finality of it, that you said final, it was final. Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah. That's why the word final is I mean, it just can't be spoken about. There is no time. So these words, sudden, final, explosion, death, even, I mean, all seem to, imply even that something happened, which it just didn't. So yeah, there's just no way to talk about this. So saying the word final is just seems to be an attempt, one could say, in the sense of the me thinking to see it as this process. But this sudden explosion is is as close as one can say, but it just doesn't happen. So that doesn't need to be said. And of course, the person would latch onto anything. Yeah. It's final, there's a before, there's an after, it's sudden. Okay, it's something definitely happened. It was sudden. Totally incomprehensible. Nothing happened, cannot be comprehended. The only thing that seems to try to comprehend the incomprehensible is something that already doesn't exist. Okay, was there utter exhaustion and a sense of hopelessness before the death of Izzy? Oh, totally, yeah. Yeah, totally. Between this so-called awakening, initially there was a lot of excitement and positivity, one could say, at what was so-called seen or experienced or thought I'd glimpsed or whatever. But then this soon turned to, yeah, a lot of hopelessness and a lot of pain, a lot of poor me, and yeah, total hopelessness, of course. And there just obviously is no one or nothing that can be done, because it's just what appears to be happening. Total hopelessness. So on the one hand, this in itself seemed very liberating, but on the other hand, it seemed extraordinarily painful because it was just nothing.
Hey, Izzy.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, was it because like here it's like nothing works anymore, is how it feels. It's like everything I've tried, that used to work doesn't work. Any method, practice, whatever it is, I just feel knackered because even going to work seems, I haven't even gone to work this week because it's, like a total lostness. Yeah.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one could say that their total lack of motivation there was here as well. Like all of these previous things that were sort of seemed so exciting that I'd put hope into, let's say, like things like studying or work, or whatever. Just totally collapsed. Just couldn't pursue them anymore. Just totally empty.
This is the thing. It's like, I suppose it feels like a death because it's like I don't know what's on the other side. There's been big glimpses, but that was so long ago now, and it's like something's crawling away to die or something. It's weird. No one understands because
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, there is no other side.
Mm,
because
yeah,
there's already no one on this side, so to speak, on your side who's struggling, let's say. There's just no sides.
yeah, yeah. It's like I've heard someone say before, you know, like a glimpse is the worst thing that can happen. And when the awakening happened in like it was like 2016 or something, it was very exciting, and it
Hmm.
was just like glimpse after glimpse, and it felt like, you know, there was something about to happen, and then yeah, just loads of seeking until now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it seemed like this for me too. Like
Mm,
these awakenings, these glimpses seemed exhilarating. Like,
yeah.
and it seemed like this apparent liberation was going to be one big glimpse, or
Yeah. Exactly.
the almighty glimpse, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I mean, a total underwhelm. Of course, nothing happens. And so one could say almost these so-called glimpses or so-called awakenings seem to further perpetuate this idea that something has to happen, that there has to be another glimpse or another or a bigger glimpse or a whatever, or something similar to last time.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's just this already.
But this without the wanting for it to be anything else. Yeah.
Well,
That
no, of course not.
it's
This
still,
this
still a longing.
with the apparent body Dan saying there's a longing for something else. That's just this already. I mean,
Right.
of course, this so-called longing for something else may collapse, but of course, this habit may stay in the body and just fade or not.
Right. Is there a longing there then? Still, is that
Oh, well, one could say the body still seems to, I mean, this apparent sort of uh one could say the strength of it seems to be relaxing or fading, let's say. So
right?
of course there is no one longing ever, but this illusion that there was someone or is someone is totally dead, of course. But the body, one could say, still seems to behave perhaps quite neurotically or with old habits or patterns, but just slowly seem to be relaxing or fading. As one could say, there's no longer obviously this illusion that there is someone.
Right. With regard to like trauma and sort of healing and stuff, I imagine that was all going on obviously for you before. Yeah. Did that just fall away then? Because
Oh, well, of course, in this sense of someone trying to heal. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, I
Okay.
mean, for me, healing always was a sort of an effort I had to do, like a
Yeah.
path, or I had to love myself more, or read this book, or do this breath work, or whatever. And then I
Okay.
would be on this path to healing. So, of course, no, I mean, there is just no one here. Of course, there is no one. So, this one that could or would try to heal is dead already. But and one could say then the body then seems to have room to breathe, one could say, and
Right.
just seems to be relaxing.
Okay.
So one could call that in itself a type of healing, ironically,
Yeah.
that seems
Yeah.
to then naturally just the body relaxes as it's no longer under this sort of spell of having to heal.
Mm. And that's what it's like here. And when there's been those glimpses, the first thing was like, fucking hell, you know, there's just nothing to heal. There's no, what is the, and then that came back again, like something was missing and frustrating.
Oh, of course. Yeah, there
Yeah.
is no problem. Yeah, there is
Right.
nothing's broken or needs to be healed.
So that just became obvious at some point. Like that was just
Well, I mean, there may have been these sort of insights, but of course, in the end, this apparent death, one could say, isn't an insight, of course.
No.
It's just this totally energetic explosion into boundlessness. So the end of insights, of course.
Right.
No, I mean, there's just no one who could have insights anymore.
No. Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Nice to chat with you.
Nice to chat.
Okay, a couple more in the chat. After the apparent death of Izzy, can you say that what's happening is positively lifeless and that's why you see everything as normal? Well, I mean, no, there can be nothing said about what appears to be happening. So the death of Izzy, or the apparent death of me, is death. So of course, there's just no one who could say, oh yes, what's happening is positively lifeless or not. No, it's neither lifeless nor is it full of life. I mean, one could say it's just life. One could call that totally full of itself in that sense. But no, I don't really, no, of course not. I mean, no. I don't see everything as normal. There is no me that sees anything normal or abnormal. I mean, when I say, or when it's suggested, it's just totally normal. It's just as in an apparent body just sitting on Zoom is all there is. There's nothing higher, there's nothing else, there's nothing later, bigger, deeper, just this. Just gorgeously normal. Yeah, I'm clearly in a good mood. Okay, in deep sleep, does the world completely cease to exist and reappear anew on waking? Well, there is no world that ceases to exist or that then begins existing again. There is no beginning, there is no ending. Yeah, there's no reappearing anew on waking. I mean, this seems to be the experience of the person. So of course, in deep sleep, there is no one. I mean, there is no one anyway. But then there seems to be this apparent person that wakes up. And then, I mean, obviously can't say anything about deep sleep, just like nothing can be said about this. This is deep sleep, or this is death. I mean, the apparent person seems to split all of these so-called states of consciousness into different states. So there's deep sleep when there's no one, then I wake up, and then there's dream sleep, and oh, I mean, it just becomes a whole nother game. There is no one. Okay, in the chat. The life in freefall is mentioned a lot. Could you comment? I mean, of course, what is just life, one could say. I mean, I've heard this used as well. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be something I speak about, but of course, seen from the apparent person, life doesn't seem to be in free fall. It wants to control life or tame life or know life or whatever. And so, of course, there's no opposite to that, though. There's no uncontrollable life or whatever. There's just life. Yeah, I mean, I've said it a lot this evening, but totally normal. Yeah, it can't be caught, can't be known or boxed into a category or whatever. Just total, I mean, I would probably say just boundlessness. Boundless life. But yeah, the words don't matter, so if you want to call it life in freefall, sure. There's no one free falling, of course. What does life is empty fullness mean to you? Well, it doesn't mean anything to me. Nothing means anything. There is no meaning. What appears to happen is empty fullness. But that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean there is empty fullness. I mean, all that appears to happen is empty fullness. An apparent body asking a question on Zoom. What does life is empty fullness mean to you? Is empty fullness appearing to happen? Okay, well, this is it. This is wholeness. An apparent Zoom meeting, an apparent body sitting, breathing, listening on Zoom for an hour or so is all there is. There is nothing else, and nothing could happen or needs to happen for this to be more what it is, more whole and complete. It's everything. Okay, well, this weekend, there's not the usual Saturday meeting because we've got the Zoom weekend, which is 2 days of this, basically 2 days of Zoom, 4 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, Saturday and Sunday. So yeah, if you'd like to come, everyone is welcome, of course, and you can just drop me an email and I will send you the details and the Zoom link and all that jazz. So I was gonna, oh yeah, if you're in America as well, you're more than welcome to come to just the afternoon sessions, because I know it's quite early, the mornings. So yeah, maybe see some of you there. If not, have a lovely week and we'll be back on this one next Wednesday. Okay, take care.
Thank you, Izzy.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Thanks.
Izzy.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.